Welcome to the Big Movement Podcast. If you're ready to create results and make huge strides in your business, finances, personal development, and health, then you're in the right place. Pushing past excuses and powering through procrastination can be a challenge alone. Here, you'll get the support, tools, and knowledge you need to get to the level you desire in your business and life. Let's get started with your host, Byron Ingram.
And welcome to another episode of the Big Movement Podcast. Today, we have Jim Mitzel on, who is a mortgage professional with over 10 years in the real estate industry, who embarked upon this journey after discovering the things that he didn't want to do, but realized real estate was his true passion and has built it every day since, focusing on building quality relationships with the people so you can have a thriving business. So we're going to learn a little bit more how you do that in such a dynamic world today with Jim. So Jim, welcome.
Thanks, Byron. I appreciate you having me on.
Sure, definitely. So and we were talking a little bit beforehand that you focus on relationships and you start off with a different path. How did you end up in the real estate industry? Because so many people have different paths of how they get there.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I guess anything you figure out what you want to do, normally it's trial and error. So I certainly can attest to that. So, my background was my whole life, I thought I wanted to be an attorney, be a lawyer, and started college with a started and finished college with a political science major with the aspirations to go to law school and then get into politics, which I did. I went to law school for a year, went and worked in D.C. And everything, but that kind of path made me realize it's not what I want to do. But along that whole kind of road and different things that I've done, I've realized, basically that the key to anything you want to do, it doesn't really matter what it is building those relationships, meeting people, and then realizing, once you build those relationships and people see, your kind of how you're wired and your true colors, it gives you the opportunity then to take those relationships and then whatever you get into, real estate, any type of business, take those relationships and then move those into a opportunity to grow.
Right, exactly. Relationships are key to everything. Is without them, we suddenly end up becoming a hermit living in a cave because we wouldn't be around anybody.
Right. And obviously too, it doesn't matter. I mean, those relationships don't even have to expand to just business. Obviously your personal life, and obviously we're going to have tons of relationships, friends, family, romantic relationships, whatever that may be. But kind of learning to interact with people, and then really, to me, I think that if you're going to have a good business, no matter what it is, the framework of that's going to be relationships and people, whether it be your clients, whether it be your vendors you work with, whether it be your employees, whether it be your equals, whatever it is. I mean, the relationships just keep kind of expounding, from there, the basis of everything.
Right. It's something that's so important that we have to focus in on. So now, when you were making this journey into the real estate world, you did the internship in D.C. What was it that happened there that made you decide, oh, yeah, this is not going to work. You have to do something different?
Well, I guess it was a couple things. Basically, at that time, I was in law school, just finished my first year. And then let's be clear too. I wasn't knocking out of the park there either. I had done pretty well in college, and then got without really studying, and then got to law school. And it's a whole different ball game. But realizing just kind of reading briefs after briefs after briefs wasn't going to be a path for me, and I wasn't enjoying it at all. So at that point, I guess I kind of looked at maybe doing a different path, and then having the time in DC was an amazing experience. I got to work for the majority leader at the time, and it was just an amazing experience, but realized that probably up there in that world where every election, every change of a bill, that's you're really relying on someone else ultimately for your own success and your own job security, and that just didn't seem like something that I was going to be very, very much interested in.
That's fascinating because not everybody has that inside look into things, because you look at the number of legislations that are passed through, and in reality, they have to rely on staffs to give them briefs on what's in it, because if they had to read every single bill word for word, they'd never get anything done.
Correct. Yeah. I think going up there too, you really, I was there for such a short period of time, and again, I was an intern. It wasn't like I was a real important person. But just just seeing kind of the inner workings of how that works, it's a completely different, I guess, a realistic, a completely different of what you expect when you kind of think of what everything goes on when you're, I guess, looking at it from afar.
Right. That's how most things are if you think of it. It looks like one thing on the surface, but then behind the scenes it's a different beast. You're like, well, I didn't know there was all this.
Yeah, exactly. And again, that's the one thing that I just, as I talked to everybody up there, successful or not, it was, they were always just kind of relying on someone else, on a good election, on a certain bill, someone getting appointed to a certain position, whatever it may be. And that's kind of where your career went. That's kind of where your success would lie. And that just, the way I'm wired with my head, that just didn't seem like that was going to be a very satisfying future.
And it's important that you mention that because so many people, they do things for the wrong reasons. It has to be satisfying because you think of how many people they go through life, they're unfulfilled. Like, well, it pays good, but they wake up each morning like, especially when it's a Monday, they think, crap. You just insert whatever other word you want to put in there because it's Monday.
Right. Well, they always say, thank God it's Friday. Oh no, it's Monday. And I think to have that kind of mindset, to go through week after week, that would be a pretty tough way to go through life.
Right. It is because, you think of people doing that and they go through this never ending cycle where it's, oh, the Monday's here, great. And then you think of the whole week that Monday is pretty much just a waste for them because they're trying to get back in that momentum. Tuesday, they're back at it. Wednesday, it's their most productive day. Thursday, they start thinking, where am I going this weekend? And by Friday, they're checked out again.
Right. Well, I think the key to it is no matter what you do, if you're wired a certain way, I think that the key is finding something where you can wake up every morning with your hair on fire and you're ready to get after it. Doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if that's a Saturday or a Tuesday or what it is. Because really when you find something you're passionate about, you find something you're into, I think the reality of it is it never turns off. There is no Friday, there is no Monday. It all kind of bleeds together because I can't tell you that my mindset on what I think about in growth and ways to grow our business and do stuff like that is I'm thinking differently at Tuesday at 10 o'clock in the morning than I do Saturday at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It's always there. It's always on. So I think, that's the key is if you can do something and find something that you're A, passionate about, but B, just kind of something that, intrigues you enough that it just never turns off.
Exactly. It's a mindset about everything. You think of that what you just said there. The people who are most successful, every day is treated the same as it's an opportunity to make a difference. So if it's working on your business, it's spending time with family. It's all about creating that abundance so you can do the things that you truly want to do. Not that you're only thinking about business. Let's say Monday through Friday from the hours of 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. that before 9 a.m. Oh no, you can't think about it. But once 5 o'clock comes along, oh, you're done. And no one can talk to you anything else about work. Right. But you think how many people do just that?
Right. Well, I think it's funny you said that about when you said how that kind of folds over into different things in your life. I think that's true. I think intention, focus, those type of things. It doesn't matter what it is. It can be your business. It can be your family. It can be fitness. It can be health. It can be money, whatever it may be. I think intention and focus are two pretty important words. Actually, the other night I watched a documentary on Warren Buffett, Becoming Warren Buffett. I believe it was on HBO, and one of the things that they said that was pretty interesting to me is that Warren Buffett and Bill Gates sat down unprompted. I believe it was Bill Gates' dad, and said, "Hey, I want both of you guys to write down one word that describes why you're both as successful as you have." Unprompted, they had never spoke about it, and when they both wrote it down and handed in, the same word was focus. And I think that's just an interesting thing because I've always thought that intention and focus are two pretty important words, no matter what it is, business, professional, personal life, whatever you may be.
It is the most important word when you think about it because we live in that world where there's opportunities left and right, and you think of how many times people, they're always searching for the holy grail. Like, this is that one opportunity. It's going to make all the difference in the world. I'm finally going to make it. But they only give it 2 weeks of effort, they're like, well, that doesn't work. So I'm going to do the next thing and the next thing, not realizing, you look at like Warren Buffett as an example. How long did it take him before he really started to see that massive amount of success? It wasn't overnight.
Yep. Yep. Well, I think a word that gets thrown out a lot nowadays, especially with the social media world with memes and all that posters and all that stuff. I do believe it's an important word is grind. And I think that anybody that you find that's been extremely successful, it could be sports, it could be business, it could be your personal life. It doesn't really matter what it is. People that lose weight, whatever that may be, it's going to be the grind. Do you put in the consistent work that it takes to achieve a certain goal? Like kind of to your point, if you had that one really healthy meal, but then the rest of the week you don't eat good, that's not going to get you to any goal. If you have that one super great hard workout, but then you don't work out the rest of the week, I mean, that's at that point they're almost about pointless. So the continued, where you're going to find that success is in the grind, the consistent, disciplined behavior, that's carried out.
It is. That's something we have to do, and it's conditioning ourselves where it goes above and beyond what we typically think of through the educational system that we've all gone through. It doesn't matter what school across the country or around the world. There's so many are the exact same thing. It's you're working for a little bit, studying your whatever topic, and then you're done. Instead of what's that constant grind? What do you have to continuously improve upon? Versus seeing that here's this finish line. It's that finish line is always a moving target. Yeah. It's not like, okay, you've crossed it, you're done. You can sit back on the couch and do nothing. Well, no, because you look at the world we live in. Like, you think of when you first started it in the real estate industry, that social media didn't really exist yet.
Nope. No.
So the way that you had to build it then, which if you think about it, just a little over 10 years ago, was not that long ago, is entirely different today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the world's changing. That's the biggest thing is, like you said, that finish line or that whatever you want to call it, that line's always going to move, and and that's the thing. I think that's one of the issues we have for us here in the mortgage business is we have so many people that when you talk to them, successful or whatever, want to talk about what they were doing 10 years ago or how they did things 10 years ago, and I think that's one of the biggest issues we have. I went to a mortgage seminar, I believe, last year, and they said 10 years ago the average salesperson, the average loan officer in the mortgage business was like 49 or 50 years old. 10 years later, the average age was 10 years old, and they said that just doesn't happen. And there's been so people in our industry have gotten so laxed, and that's the way things were done. And I don't think there's a lot of innovation. There's a lot of people exploring new ways to do things. So I think that's where, in my business anyways, I think that's where there's an opportunity out there to be a little bit different and to, maybe, explore some opportunities that maybe some other people aren't.
It is, because every industry out there, there's an opportunity to be disruptive in the marketplace and to really change things, because it's all about putting a different set of glasses on.
Yeah.
If you think about the mortgage industry, if someone was utilizing only the strategies from 10 years ago, do you think that they would have a much harder time today because things are so much different?
Yeah, I mean, and obviously for us too, in our world after 2008, the whole world changed for us, and so regulations different, loans are different. But again, like you said, the innovation part, as far as the reality of anything in sales is, we can all talk. I mean, there's very few industries where the product alone is going to build your business. Essentially, what it boils down to is, how do you as a organization, or how do you as a sales staff, or how do you as an individual, how do you go out and market yourself? How are you able to get that phone ringing? How are you able to connect with people and build relationships? And so, the ways to do that now are much different than they were 10 years ago. Heck, much different than they were 5 years ago. So I think that's that's something that's, be very cognizant of and understand where there are changes.
Right, exactly. It's a non-stop evolution. So when you decided to go into the mortgage industry, how did you pick it from the various aspects of real estate, since there's not really a guidebook out there that says, okay, we're going to list out all the different aspects of real estate, so you need to pick one of these?
Yeah. When I got into it, I actually thought I wanted to be a real estate agent, and I thought I wanted to be a realtor. Kind of that was my first, um, I guess, inclination. I kind of looked at that, and I realized that yeah, I think the goal, no matter what I was going to do, real estate, mortgage, anything, at that point, I had just sold a little distribution company that we had that was very mediocre, and was getting into when I wanted to get into the real estate world, and I think the thought process initially for me either way was, okay, well, this is going to build a business at some point. I'll get in as a real estate agent, or I'll get in as a loan officer, whatever it may be. But eventually, the goal was to build a business. So, as much as I liked both aspects of real estate agent and mortgage, I just felt like the structure for building a substantial business, I think, fit a little better with what I want to do in the mortgage business. I like numbers. I like I like people. I like clients. I like financial literacy. I like that's always been, even in the real estate world. When I thought I wanted to be a real estate agent, part of that was to educate people on finances and debt and just that kind of stuff. So I really was kind of drawn to that aspect of it, because the financial piece of it is important to me, obviously important to my family, and kind of I feel like one of the things you mentioned earlier when you're talking about school, I think one of the worst things we do as Americans is prepare young people for the financial world, whether that be balancing a checkbook, to investments, to how to handle debt, why we get debt, why should we get debt. I think that's a big boat we're missing in this country, and so I think that there's a lot of opportunity out there to educate and to help people in the finance world. So I think that's kind of what drew me to that, was more the money aspect, the finances aspect.
And it's so true, because you look at the world we live in, there's not like a class or even just a small seminar that high schools today will have. It's just, here's everything you need to know about financial literacy so you can avoid so many mistakes. How can you get started properly? It's just, here you go, figure it out. And it's left to in each individual's own devices. So they have to hope that their parents and mentors are financially savvy,
Well, I think
so they don't follow the wrong
Yeah, and
people.
I think unfortunately most parents don't have the tools, and they were never given the education, and they never sought it out on their own. I think you're right. I think that's the assumption is that that they'll just get that from home, but I think in so many cases with the way with our society the way it is, with the we want it now, and the acceptance of it, basically debt is a good thing, and not really knowing the perils of that, and how to handle that. I think that's what a lot of people are learning from home, unfortunately. So I don't think that's the only education they're getting, and it's not necessarily a lot of times good education.
Right. It's one of those things. I heard it not too long ago at a seminar, the difference in terms of how people use debt. That the people who have, let's say, the wrong mindset, they're using debt to, let's just say, buy a TV,
Mm-hmm.
go out to dinner, those types of things, versus someone who's, let's say, they're going to leverage debt to buy a rental property, so it becomes an income producer.
Right.
So if they're
Go ahead. Sorry, Bob.
because if you think about it, when you're talking about numbers, if someone was to decide, like, okay, I can, let's see, if they wanted to buy a rental property, and it was, it doesn't matter how much it is, but if, let's say, the cost of the debt was, let's say, 5%, but they were generating a 10% return, they're still coming out ahead of that case. So then in that case, debt's a great thing, because they're making more money than it's costing them.
Right. Right. But yet then we have so many people that are in a fixed income job with 17, 18% credit cards. They're paying car leases, car notes with these, and essentially their opportunity to reinvest, whether it be to buy that rental property, or whether it be to add more to their 401k or invest in mutual funds. Their money's going right back out the door to pay some bank, to pay some bank for a credit card, to pay some bank for a car note or a car lease, to pay back their student loans that they've been out of school for 10 years and they're still paying, that kind of stuff. And I think that that's a missed opportunity in our society, because you lose 5, 10 years of opportunities to invest, to buy that rental property, to invest in your business, to again, put money in 401k, mutual funds, stuff like that. And I think that that's where what I see a lot of the issues are right now as far as finances go.
Right, and it's something that has to change in order for people to have the things that you want. Because when you're looking at the people you help in the mortgage industry, you see that wide snapshot of the people that they're scraping everything they have to be able to make that purchase,
Mm-hmm.
and others they're like, whatever, here's the check.
Yep, yep. Well, I think too we have such a this is probably going to be really really strange for a mortgage guy to say this, but and I'm not going to try to go all Dave Ramsey-ish on anybody, but we've got this myth out there that you're somewhat financially savvy if you have a good credit score. And I think there couldn't be anything further from the truth. And I will steal one of Dave Ramsey's lines: is a FICO score just essentially means you're really good at managing debt, and that does not equate to um, financial winning at all. So I think so many times I have people that come to me and they're so proud of this credit score, and I'm like, you'd be a little better off with a little lower credit score and a little lower debt, having a little bit more money in the bank. And so, just the ability to manage a credit score or manage debt, I don't think is an indication on whether you're winning at the game of money.
Right, exactly. It was a couple weeks ago. I was talking to some people that just were doing a lot of real estate investments,
Mm-hmm.
and they would be the first one to flat out tell you that their credit score sometimes it can be amazing, other times it's crap, based on what they're doing because they might be buying a property. And at that particular point in time, because they're leveraging themselves to make the repairs in the home and so forth, because they're taking on that debt, well, of course their score is going to take a little bit of a plummet.
Right.
But then once it's paid off through the proceeds, it's right back up there. So for them, it's a roller coaster. It's always going up and down. It's not like it's always perfect because they realize it's a tool to utilize at the end of the day versus it just sitting like, I bought a new TV, but did it make you money?
Right. 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 And I think so many times in our society, it's just that's unfortunately that's where we're at. It's and we're with the age of social media too. I think I always laugh. I forget who I read this on Twitter, Instagram, whatever. One of them was saying, it's becoming so hard for me to tell if someone's successful or not unless they're posting pictures of their new car and their new TV online. And it's just I think that's where we've got a kind of a misconception of what is success and what is money and what is having money. And I think that like you said, having someone who maybe doesn't have all the flashy things, but yet they're utilizing debt to build income, leveraging their income, leveraging their debt as opposed to buying TVs and big cars. Maybe they're using debt to buy investment properties, or maybe they're putting money back into their business, or maybe they're investing in themselves. Um,
Right.
those might be a more indication of someone who might be long-term winning, to use a term. So I don't know, but I do think that social media has kind of helped instigate that a little bit, where everybody's so caught up on what someone's driving, wearing, buying, stuff like that.
Right. It is because we live in that world of reality TV where people are grasping onto all these material things must equate to having a large amount of wealth, but at the same time, you have to look at it as all those things could evaporate in a blink of an eye due to storms, fires, you name it, or
Yep.
so forth. But the people I think are the wealthiest, they're not flashing it about. That the only way you know how much they have is you have to be in the inner circle. Then they're going to tell you, or you're going to be wondering, how come you're always traveling these places? And then they let you into the world where they might live in a moderate or an average size house because they don't really spend that much time there. They're always going someplace fun and exciting. Or they might, instead of having, let's say, one big massive house that they're married to because like they are trying to keep up with the Joneses,
Yep.
they have that moderate home, but they have like six of them, so they're never in the same place.
Right. No. Well, and I think too. I think that a lot of that too equates back to you see it when you work with people, and people you've worked with in the past, you work current, whatever, and you see certain people have that innate drive, and you see what that drive is: the drive to better themselves, the drive to work hard. There's lots of people out there that talk a good game, but that innate desire, that innate drive, you can normally tell pretty quickly with someone whether they have it. And I think that's what in turn equates to, kind of how they proceed and what they do with that money when they obtain it, and how they handle themselves.
Right, exactly. Drive determines everything because you look at what people want to have, that there's that immediate gratification and then there's that long-term gratification. And we live in this world where people look too much on, I want that gratification at this moment because I have to have that new TV. Like, oh, my 40-inch TV, it doesn't do the job anymore. I have to get the big 85-inch TV.
Right.
Like, okay, neither one's serving you unless you're watching like educational films. It's just a time suck.
Right. Right. Well, and I think, too, I mean, you said that about the drive and determination, focus, intent, some of those words we used earlier. I think, that's one of the things I said that saw the other day, something I read was, if someone wakes up, if you have basically you're gonna have a mirror for a day, right? So you're gonna mirror me for a day. You're gonna wake up when I wake up. You're gonna do what I do, and then you're gonna hang out with me all day. And at the end of that day, you're gonna go to bed when I go to bed, and you're gonna look back, and then the next morning you're gonna get up, and me and you're gonna sit down and talk. Are you gonna look at me and go, "Man, you're someone who's destined for success," and whatever it is, whatever my definition of success may be, and that's gonna vary for everybody, but. Do you look at that and say, well, if my goals are here, did I wake up that day and Byron, when you followed me around that whole day from the time I woke up to the time I go in the morning to the time I went to bed that night, did I do the things that day that you would say that's what a successful person would do? And I think that's where those, again, focus, drive, intent, I think that some of those things come from.
It does, and I think where it comes back down to it. And when you circle everything back around, it's the people that you surround yourself with. Because you look at the people who are most successful, obviously the focus is that word, but then if you look at another type of focus is they focus on the people that are around them. That if they want to get ahead in a particular area, they're going to find the mentors, the coaches, and so forth that are experts in that.
Yep.
So they're not trying to figure it out themselves. Like if someone has a shortcut, they're going to invest in that shortcut instead of like, well, I'm going to do it on my own. That's going to be more expensive because you're going to make tons of mistakes along the way.
Yeah. I mean, you look at, in the last few years, health, fitness, that stuff has become important to me. It wasn't for a long time in my life. I was very much focused on other things, and that part of my life got pretty lazy. But the last few years, health and fitness has come pretty important to me. And I'll tell anybody, I have a personal trainer. I have a couple of them. You know why? Because when I get up at 4 a.m. to go work out, I don't want to have to create a workout routine. So I go there, I shut up, I listen to them, they tell me what to do. I don't create workouts. I don't pretend like I know more about it than they do, because I don't. They know more about me, and they get me in shape. They keep me in shape. They push me. They make me work harder. And same when I have questions, when I'm trying to get my eating on different points and change some things up, and maybe I need a little bit of this or that. I talk to someone who knows more than I do. I don't try to reinvent that wheel. I don't have time during my day to do that. I have other things that people rely on me for, and things that are important to me and my business. So that's where I'm going to put my focus. I'm an expert there. But I go out and seek those people in those different areas of my life that I know more than I do, and seek out their guidance, and then I shut up and listen to them. I don't pretend to know everything that that they went to school for, what they've been doing 15 years, and start expounding to everybody that I'm some kind of expert. I'm not. So I just again show up, shut up, and do what they tell me.
Right, and that's what we have to do. It's the only way to achieve that high level of success. I'm like you when it comes to fitness. I pay people to do exactly that. I show up, I do the workouts.
Yep.
I don't want to try to figure it out. Do I know a lot about health and fitness? Sure.
Right.
But I look at my day. Like I have 24 hours each and every day. I'm still trying to figure out how I can make 25, but I'll get back to you on that one.
Let me figure that out, Byron.
But until then, I have to look at how do I maximize each hour, and that if someone else has already developed that system, I'm going to plug into that. It's do these workouts, great, that's going to work. If this is how you can read faster, perfect. That means I can get more knowledge into my system than if I did it the old fashioned way.
Yep.
So it's always look at how can I optimize every single component. So then when you look at your day, you get so much more done instead of like, well, I wrote an email.
Right. But in that honestly, I mean, you talk about something that gets you fired up, something that sets your hair on fire. Isn't that the really cool thing about life is that, if I'm competing with anybody in anything, or I'm trying to be the best person I can, we all have 24 hours in a day. You're not getting 25. I'm pretty sure that you're not going to figure out how to get to 25. So if me and you need to do, we're going to have the same amount of hours in our day. So then that puts us essentially every single person is on a level playing field in that aspect. We all have those 24 hours, and then what do we do with those hours? How do we make use of those? And what kind of big things can we accomplish? Because you're not going to have more hours in a day than I am. I'm not going to have more hours in a day than you would. So it kind of puts us on that level playing field.
Right, exactly. Because one of the things that I don't say it gets under my skin, but it really does get under my skin when I hear people say, I don't have time for that, or you don't understand. I have all these things going on. And that's where I can't give someone a sympathetic look. Like, so what you're saying is you have more issues that's preventing you from success than these people that are having high levels of success, but they have more on their plate than you do, but they're not creating excuses.
Yeah. When I really, and this is a strong word to use, but I hate the word busy. I hate when I hear, because we're all busy. I'm busy. You're busy.
Right.
It doesn't matter. I mean, if you've got stuff going on, I mean, I'm sure there's maybe a few people in this world, but we're all busy. We really are. And so, again, like you said, you'll make time for what's ever important. It doesn't matter. You'll figure it out. For me, working out's important, but so is hanging out with my family. So that's why I go work out at 4:35 in the morning. Because by the time I get back from my workout, my wife, my two beautiful little girls are still asleep. So they don't even know Daddy was gone. So when I get back from working out in the morning, no one's missing. So because working out is important to me. So I will make time to do it, and it will happen. It's not because I'm busy, because I am busy. I have other stuff going on. But if I didn't go work out, it would just be a poor excuse on my part because it's not important to me. And that's okay too. Everything that's important to everybody, but it's like you said, it's not because you don't have time.
Right. And what you just said there is really important because it's about creating abundance. Because too many people, they get stuck on this notion of creating balance, where balance is taking away from one area to contribute to another, versus abundance is you figure out what's a way that you can do all the things that you want to have, such as you want to get your workouts in, but you don't want it to take away from any of your family time. So what do? You get up a little earlier.
Yep. Well, and I mean, and you take stuff like family time. Well, with me, having my business and running my business, there's weekends where my wife may be out of town. I have my girls with me, and there's a work event. Well, my girls throw on a primary residential mortgage shirt, and we go. And they're my little advertisers. They're my little walking billboards. They're going to learn this is what Daddy does, and this is how we do it. This is how we talk to people, and this is how we um, this is how we make a living. This is how we're going to learn. My girls are 4 and 7. They're going to learn. We learn how to sell. We learn how to talk to people. We learn how to look at people. We learn how to shake people's hands. So it's not always it's not Pinterest. It's not Facebook. It's not Instagram pretty all the time. My kids go to work with me. They sit in my office on Saturday mornings sometimes and put papers in the shred box because Daddy's got work to do. And it's not always pretty, but that's life. And so they're not. Again, I'm not shooting for balance. I'm shooting for for success and growth. And they're my daughters, so they're going to be part of that one way or the other. So.
And that in itself is great because you think of the education they're receiving that they would never get sitting in a classroom someplace. Mm-hmm. That it's you're doing whatever it takes to create that lifestyle, and work doesn't have to mean that it's boring or it's not fun at all. They're seeing that if you want something, you have to be willing to go ahead and just do it. It's if you just blink your eyes and just think like, oh, please make it work, and nothing happens. Like you got to do something for it.
Yeah, you got it. And what we do, in most businesses, again, I know there's a few industries out there where it's very specific. You're one of the only ball games in town and stuff like that. But for what I do, mortgages, there's someone doing what we do in every corner of the street, and there's someone out there. So again, it's, the difference is going to be, the difference is going to be how you handle yourself, because anybody can do it. So are you willing to get up each morning and go get after it? Go be successful, go meet people, shake enough hands, meet enough people, talk to enough people, have enough phone calls, have enough emails, have enough networking. What are you doing? And so I think that equates to any business. I don't think that's the mortgage business. I don't think that's the real estate business. I think it's anything. All the successful people I know, it's funny to me, they're always talking to people. They're out, they're on the phone, they're going to events, they're having fun. It can be, it can be joyous things too. It can be going out to happy hours. It can be going to play golf. It can be going to networking events. It could be, going to, whatever it is. You know, but again, they're always out meeting people and moving forward. I think that's a very important thing.
It is important because we live in the age where it's all about how many people you're in front of, and something that's always been there in terms of growing the business. Just the marketing mediums have changed. And if you're not talking to people every single day, that means the pipeline is not full, which doesn't help a business all that much. See, that's what people have to explore, what's going to work best. But at the end of the day, it still comes back down to the relationships, because we live in that world where too many people look at somebody as a head of cattle instead of each person has a story, a background, and you never know of who is that person connected to.
Yep. Yeah. And I mean, well, and that's the other thing too. I mean, in business, I listened to a thing Dave Ramsey said in his EntreLeadership thing the other day, because if you're in business, the reality is if you're one of those guys that your hair is on fire, I mean, you're just getting after it, right? You're probably going to outwork about 80% of the people over your competition. That's the reality. Because most people aren't going to put in the work. And then you have 15% that hopefully you can out character and out moral, because maybe you treat people right. You always have the client's best interest in mind. You're gonna do the right thing. You're gonna be there for your clients and consumers. And then the other 5%, it's Super Bowl time, baby. It's game on. You got to get after it. You got to get up, because guess what? They're doing the exact same thing you are. They're working as hard as you are. They're out there meeting people, and I think that's I have a little bit of competitiveness in my head, in my soul. I think that's what I like about business, is it allows me to compete. 'Cause I know there are people out here that they're doing a lot better job of things than I am. There's some people that are, they're far ahead of where I'm at. There's some people that are right where I'm at. There's some people that are trying to get where I'm at. Whatever it is. And I think that's what the cool thing about business is. It gives you the opportunity to really, be competitive and get after there and see who's out there. And all in good fun, not in a negative way, just that competitiveness, the fun part of it. The reason you get up in the morning, right?
Right, exactly. But those things there, it's so critical in terms of growing a business. But that's what we have to do. It's looking at the vast majority of people are not going to wake up with that burning passion, that fire to get in front of people. They're going to look at, it's not a good day. Oh, I have a headache. I have this, instead of, so what? You got to do it. It's part of the process.
March on, right? I mean, it doesn't matter. No one else out there, your competition, your clients, your referral partner, whatever it is, honestly, no one truly cares. You're having a bad day, or you have a headache, no one cares about that. I mean, maybe you're lucky enough to have a good spouse and maybe some family, maybe your mama and daddy, or you're still around, that they care, but no one else cares. So
right.
Get up and get after it. I mean, things are tough sometimes. Things don't always go the way you want them to. You're gonna have setbacks, and you're gonna be told no a lot. And you're gonna, but again, you gotta just get up and get after it. That's the only way that you're gonna achieve. Again, whatever that level of success is, it's different for everybody. But no one else is gonna achieve it for you. You gotta do it on your own.
Exactly. I like to jokingly say to people, the only one that cares if you're having a pity party is a dog.
Yeah, that's why there's so many dogs out there, Brian. That's why everybody has one.
Right. Like, don't get a cat if you want a pity party, because a cat will look at you like, right, whatever, yeah, and walk off. They treat you like people do, right? Right. So you have to just get up and make it happen. And I here's a great example. If you look at professional sports, people say, oh my gosh, that person was a little off today. What they might not realize is that person's they might have been suffering from the flu, and they just pumped themselves full of drugs because they had to play that day.
Yes.
Because that was their job.
Not an option. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So was it their best? No, but they still showed up. And because of that, they're still better than the people who would have said, oh, I can't do this.
Yeah.
Because they have a little cough. So what? Get over it.
Well, and whatever it is, right? I mean, especially in what you do, your background, right? I mean, doing something that comes out 70% of what you could do is a hell of a lot better than doing it and not at all. So,
Right.
I mean, I think so many times we see people that different things, they're striving for certain things to do perfection, and then it just paralyzes them. They don't do anything. And that's, I mean, because no matter what you do, successful, not successful, doesn't matter what you do. There's going to be critics. There's going to be people that are, are going to talk about you and tell you, tell everybody why you're doing something wrong or you're not doing it right or whatever. You're going to have that, thing that you do that turns out awful and it probably should be made fun of and talked about. But again, I mean, if you don't do anything, you're not going to, so it's better to do that and try to achieve success and get better and improve than to not do anything at all. So I think that sometimes that fear or maybe that's the best word, just paralyzes people.
Right. Well, I think it's something that it's a leftover from the educational system. You think about every class you had, it was this pressure. You have to get straight A's.
Yeah.
You got to be perfect. But at the same time, guess what it led to? That you wouldn't do something unless you knew you could get everything right. Versus the person that some of the most successful entrepreneurs, they were C students.
Yep.
Because they would just try anyways. Like, well, if I got an A, bonus points. If not, so what? They kept on going.
Yeah, I mean, you take take sales for example, right? Whatever kind of sales you're in. So let's say you get on the phone and you call one person that day and you have the most perfect pitch or whatever you do, presentation, whatever type of sales you're in, and it's spot on, it's perfect, and you get that client. And let's say you got it, whatever, but you have a perfect pitch, and that's what you did. You spent hours perfecting it, and you did all that. If you take the guy that has maybe a pitch that's 70% of yours, but if he makes 20 phone calls, he's probably going to be a little bit more successful at sales than you are if you have that one perfect pitch. So, again, I think that's where the hustle comes in. That's where the grind comes in. That's where the getting out there and doing it. And I think that's maybe a good example of where someone who's that A student that has that perfect pitch and that perfect sales presentation, maybe in that aspect might lose to someone who's a C student who's just like, well, here's what I've got. I'm going to go get it because I'm going to call 20 people instead of one. So.
Right, exactly. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what business someone's in. It's all about the numbers.
Yep.
The more numbers or the people that you're in front of, the better the results. So if you let's see, like using that whole 70% thing, if you could have 70% of your calls be great, and that resulted in, let's say, half of them closing in a deal. So let's say that was 3 out of 10. Well, great. Well, 3 out of 10 is better than 0 out of 1.
Exactly. Or even 1 of 1.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you're right.
Now, you have to look at like baseball for that purpose. Because you think about it, people are excited, like, oh my gosh, that person has like a 285 average. What people don't realize when they look at the numbers is that means that person hits 28% of the time.
Yep.
They're missing over 70% of the time at bat.
Yep. But in baseball, 35% of the time will get you in the Hall of Fame, right?
Right, exactly. It's like you might as well. You'll have every team lined up at your door. It's like, how big of a check can we write? They would just jump all over you. But anywhere else in life, you're like, oh no, I can't miss that much. Like, don't you see? Like, this is what it takes there. Or if you look at any sport, we always focus in on the number of things that they did successful. We just don't talk about how many times they miss. You think of, if you look at basketball or football, or you think of, like, let's just football, since that's a great sport out there. You think of all the completion rates of the quarterbacks, but people don't talk about how many throws did they miss.
Yep.
How many times did they drop the ball, they fumble, or whatever else? It happens all the time.
Yeah. No, you're right.
But at the end of the day, the only way we can create success in any industry is we have to show up, because if you don't show up, the outcome is pretty obvious. It's going to be nothing.
Right. Well, again, and I think that and it doesn't matter what it is. I mean, that can be, a personal relationship with your spouse. It can be your friendships. It can be, your relationship with your kids. It can be health. It can be fitness. It can be losing weight. It can be money. They all require that consistent grind, that consistent drive. And if you don't pay attention to it consistently and work at it, or business, whatever, you're ultimately not going to probably achieve the level of success that you want. So and money is the same way. You need to be disciplined with your money and figure out, how you're going to handle that, just like your relationships and your business and all of that.
Right, exactly. It's just how it goes. So as we begin wrapping everything up
Sure.
here, what's one thing that you recommend people do, especially if they're looking to create success in real estate or in any industry, really?
Yeah, probably you're probably tired of me hitting this nail on the head, but essentially, I just feel like when you find what it is you want to do, you find where you have drive, and again, it may not always be. I can't say that when I was 4 years old, I had visions of being in the mortgage business. It wasn't like playing quarterback for the Cowboys or center field for the Yankees. It wasn't the exact same thing, but when you find that thing that you really want to do, you find something you're passionate about, you find something that you want to do day in and day out. You got to show up and grind. You got to show up and work. And again, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you're at. It doesn't matter what your company does or doesn't do for you, or what if you're whatever business you're selling, what your product is, or you're the one that's going to make it happen. And that consistent grind of waking up and getting it done, that's where you're going to see your success. So I just think that, that consistency, that intent, and then you use Bill Gates and Warren Buffett's word of focus, intent, focus, hustle, grind. I think that all those words will kind of, I think that essentially can give you success to the level you want in whatever it is you may be doing.
Right, exactly. You have to show up and just go after it, because at the end of the day, the only person that will determine your success or failure in life looks back at you in the mirror every single day.
Yep, see him every morning.
Right. So you just got to make the best of it. So, Jim, now how can people reach out to you, learn a little bit more about what you do, and if they're looking for a mortgage, be able to talk to you about that?
Sure. No, I appreciate it. Yeah. So, we're here licensed in all of Texas. Our website's www.lendingwithpassion.com. That's lendingwithpassion.com. And you can get on there, learn about us, reach out. The office number's on there. Feel free to call, email me, whatever. Reach out if you'd like to talk. And obviously, if you want mortgage information or just about anything in general, I'd be happy to. So, we've got a good group here. That in the mortgage industry a long time. I've got a lot of very seasoned veterans and amazing team here that really cares about client and customer service and making sure we do things right and really taking care of people and teaching along the way. So if we could ever help, or like I said, if you just want to reach out and talk, feel free to reach out to us.
Awesome. Well, definitely. Thank you once again for coming on to the Big Movement podcast today.
Byron, I appreciate you having us on. I, as a newer follower to your podcast, I've really enjoyed getting to know all the people you have on, and you do really do a really good job of kind of directing the conversation. And again, I appreciate you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thanks for listening to the Big Movement Podcast today. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Now that you've surely been inspired to take your entrepreneurial career and business to the next level, you can stop by the website and get more. And if you're ready to boost your business brand, be sure to grab your free report, 7 Easy Steps to Build Your Brand Today.